Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Jaden Fedok here, and today we're talking about how you can build your reputation as a freelance software developer. Now this is something that's immensely important, and it could be for anyone along the entire spectrum of freelance development, but specifically, if you're just starting in programming, you've got some skills, you've started to learn more about it, and you want to become a freelancer, this is for you. If you're just graduating from one of those dev schools, or you really are starting to gain momentum in programming, you feel like you've got some projects under your belt, this is absolutely relevant to you as you start to build that freelancing career or as you start to look for a job in software development in industry. Now there are also those who have been freelancers for some time who are now just kind of starting to see their client base dry up and they really want to see more leads, really light that fire once again. So this is for you guys. The desire and the goal of this video is to help and share some of those things that can help you build your reputation as a freelance programmer and really start to ramp up the quality and the quantity of the work that you do. So let's start by putting ourselves in the shoes of a potential client. So they're only looking for a few things. At the end of the day, they're looking for someone who's good at what they do, someone who can deliver on their promises, and someone who's going to communicate well. Now, I'm pretty sure every client that you'll ever work with has had some experience with a freelancer or another worker in general who has been terrible at communication. Now, this is the easiest thing to get right. Essentially, all you have to do is make sure that you're communicating well and consistently with your clients. I can't tell you how important it is to a client specifically, having been both a client and a freelancer, to have someone who's willing to work with you on a consistent basis, where if you have an issue, you have a question, they can reach out back to you as quickly as possible. Now, I'm not talking about, within the hour, but a consistent level of communication and having that decided up front and continued across the life cycle of the project is going to be immensely valuable to you, to the relationship with your clients, and the reputation that you gain as a developer. I will say hands down that recommendations from existing clients are going to be the most important thing you can possibly have. And if those clients see that you're communicating well, they'll have that good experience with you, because even if problems do arise, which they obviously will, you'll know how to fix them and you'll be able to work with those clients to present a solution instead of them feeling ignored. Essentially, if they feel like you're not communicating, they feel like you're not trying to help them, they're not going to be recommending you to their friends and peers. But as we said, there are a couple other things as well that those clients are looking for. They're looking for someone who's good at what they do, and they're looking for someone who can deliver on their promises. Now, someone who's good at what they can do, this is going to be a little bit more complicated because you really have to know your stuff to be a good freelancer. But there's a lot of people out there that could be very successful freelancers who don't necessarily think that they could do it. If you just graduated from a dev school, or you're just starting to learn programming in university, or it's something that you have on the side that you've really built into a strong hobby and you've built a couple projects on the side, you feel like you could do it, I encourage you to get out there and try it, because it's something that really could benefit you as a person, as a developer, and I think it's something that everyone should try if they're looking to become self-employed and really work for themselves, especially someone with the skills of a programmer. They are very sought after, and someone who can do it in the right way is going to make a lot of money and be very successful. So as you start to build out your skills, you're going to want to create a portfolio. Now, usually it's the first thing a client will ask for when they're starting to work with a new freelancer, or they're looking for future freelancers for their work. They're going to want to see things that you've done in the past, ideally something that's very similar to what they want to create. A lot of these clients are working with big businesses, or they're working with significant code bases that are going to require someone with a particular set of skills. Now, this is where you want to start understanding a niche. Now, a lot of people talk about niche as far as selling products and things like that, but as a developer, you're going to want to specify your skills so that you can really market yourself. And you can also really start to see growth in that field. You can start to see your skills improve in a very specific set. Now, it doesn't have to be, I only build PHP websites for healthcare and very specific, but it could be something that you can have a technology stack that you're good at. Now, it's something that you can practice and practice along your current projects, which will make you much more successful, much more marketable to future clients. But as I said, the portfolio is really what's going to matter here, because that's what the client is going to see. Now, they're going to see your face. Obviously, you're going to meet with them at some point to talk through the project, the details, who you are, and they're going to want to meet you. But then they're going to want to see your work. They're going to want to see things that you've put out. So working on things like GitHub and personal projects are going to be very valuable, as you can just send them a link. You can say, you know what, check out this link, whether it's to your personal website, whether it's to GitHub where you've got some code up there. A lot of clients are not technically inclined, so sending them just to GitHub could be beneficial and it could not be. So I would recommend having some things that have at least parts of a front end that the client can see, whether it's an app you put in the App Store, whether it's some website that you have hosted on your own domain. Things like that the client is going to like to see because they're visual, you can work with them, you can see that this developer knows what they're talking about. So building that portfolio is definitely high on your priority list for building your reputation as a software developer in this industry. Okay, so let's talk about process. Now we mentioned that a client is really looking for someone who can deliver on their promises, someone who can say, okay, I'm going to build this by this date and they can get it done. Now I don't mean to say that there aren't going to be any issues in your development process. This happens all the time. There are delays, there are unforeseen events that could happen either on the client or the developer side. So that's why you want to build that relationship in case those things happen. But you should also have a great plan in place for how you're going to get this done. Now that plan can be long and very detailed, or it can be short and very simple, but it's something that you need to have in writing with the client. And as you communicate, you can start to update that as necessary when things arise. But at the beginning of a project, you want to get as many details as you can in writing from the client so that you can say, okay, this is what we're working on, and you can take that back and start to develop off of those specs. Now, as you're starting to work and develop as a professional freelancer, these are things you're going to want to keep in mind. I actually have a quick video on 6 tips that you might want to look at. I'll put that right over there. But things that you might want to keep in mind as you're starting your career in software development. But when you're really getting into building code for a client, you want to make sure that you're keeping things consistent and in accordance with best practices. Now, not everyone codes the same way, and I appreciate that everyone has a different style, but you should always back things up with tried and true software development practices. For example, delivering early and often, so a pretty agile methodology, but essentially you're just working with the code and you're continuing to deliver new code to the client. Now that means working with something that's basic, starting with something that's really just a shell, and continuing to iterate off of that, instead of waiting till the very end to display something to a client. Now there's a lot of value in this because very often clients don't have an exact understanding of what they want. And that's fair. If you've ever wanted to work on a project, you know that that evolves over time. There are things that can change. So you're going to want to, again, keep up that communication, but it's something that you want to keep delivering smaller iterations to that client, and they can say, you know what, I love this, let's go in this direction, and that can happen much sooner in the process and not delay the project nearly as much. Another aspect of the process that is quite difficult is the very first part. Now I mentioned that you want to have some detailed plans up front, but that can be very difficult for a lot of people, especially new developers. So I wanted to talk about how to estimate these projects, how to start understanding how long something takes, but I'll probably have to get into more detail of that in another video. But suffice to say right now, you should have some experience from a personal project that you built for your portfolio. Keep careful notes of how that went, how long it took you, how long you were able to work per day, and those things will be very helpful to you as you start to plan out a process in the future. Now, one of the most common ways to estimate is to break things down to their most simple tasks. So setting up one web page, adding CSS to a website, or just even a single form, working with individual pieces of a site, you can say and understand how long that will take you. Maybe it takes you 1 hour to build the skeleton for one page in PHP. If that's the case and you know there's going to be a 40-page website, you can start to calculate the things that you're going to need, the time you might need to work on that project. Now, be very careful as well to give the client an accurate estimate of the calendar days that it might take you to build this application. Now, that could be more significant than you think, and always plan for additional time for testing and for setup. At the very beginning of a project, you're going to have to spend some time setting up your environment, making sure all your dependencies are in order, you get what you need as far as details from the client, and that takes time. A common mistake that I see new freelancers make is that they'll assume that they're going to start development on day one, which almost never happens because there's a lot of stuff that has to line up before you can start that project. So make sure that you're allowing yourself some time at the beginning. Usually it's 5 to 10% of how long that project is going to take overall to get everything set up and clean before you actually start development. That will significantly help you with a great foundation for your project in general. Estimating cost is definitely at least as difficult as that. Now you're going to be thinking about how many hours it's going to take you. You're also going to be multiplying those hours by the rate that you expect. Now, if you're a brand new freelancer, learning to price your time and your services is very, very difficult. Again, more videos are coming on these specific estimation processes, how much you should charge as a freelancer. So make sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on those videos. But in this video, we'll talk about cost as either an hourly rate or a daily rate, which I see recommended by quite a few people. I actually am starting to move toward that method myself. It's something that where you're essentially encapsulating your work into days versus hours. It can really help you with the client relations because they're not as stickler on the specific hours that you spend on things. You're really saying this is the amount of days that I can work on this project, and this is how much I would charge per day for my work. This is a little bit more complicated than using the hour method as you're estimating with pieces of a project, but it can be more helpful to those client relations. So it's something that we'll definitely discuss in future videos as well. Okay, so the final thing that I want to talk about in this video is prospects. Now, at the end of the day, you need to get clients. You need to find someone who is willing to pay you for your work. Now, if you're a developer and you've done all the things that we've already talked about, you're great at communication, you're great at working through a process with a detailed plan, you really start to understand building your portfolio, building something that's specific into a niche that you can do well. Now you're really just looking for clients. So I would say these days it seems like everyone's saying that if you put yourself on the internet, people will just flock to you and you'll be able to get work out of that. But I have not found that to be the case. So I would not recommend just expecting that once you put up a website, you'll start to get clients. I even wouldn't recommend too much of the advertisements that a lot of people are talking about. So putting in Google AdWords and Facebook ads, things like that, because generally the people that are looking for freelancers on advertisements and things like that are really just looking for price over anything else. And you're not trying to compete on price. You're not trying to be the cheapest developer because the cheapest developer is unlikely to provide the quality that a client is looking for. I'm not saying to price your services exorbitantly, but at the end of the day, you don't necessarily need to be the cheapest developer. You need to provide at least as much value as you're charging, ideally significantly more, and then the client will be much more pleased with your services. But in order to get those clients, reach out to your network. Make sure that people that you work with every single day know that that's what you do. You interact with a significant amount of people each day, and you want to build that reputation for yourself. You want people to know that you are a software developer, you're good at what you do, and you're more than happy to help people out with any small projects that they might have. Everyone that you meet probably works with a different company, and those companies could need small things here or there, and they could contract to you for that work. Especially as you're learning, it's going to be much better to work with someone that you know as you're starting to build those skills as a freelancer. So I would absolutely recommend reach out to people that you know, use social media, use the contacts that you already have to start working with your first clients. When you're just getting started, now this is specific to the people that are beginners in freelancing, start with a single client. Maybe you won't make quite as much money as you will in the future, but realize that you're building that communication, you're building all of these different skills that you'll use in the future. And if you can really nail it down with one client and focus in on that client, you'll do so much better over the long run. Okay, so we've talked on quite a few things in this video. We've talked about portfolios, we've talked about how to plan your process, how to work to get prospects, a lot of different things, communication, how to email with a client. This is all quite a bit of stuff for you to keep in mind and remember, but feel free to go back and reference different things, write things down that you're working on so you can continue to have those goals and to improve the freelance work that you do. But I'm excited for you. Let's continue this journey together. I think that freelancing is something that everyone should at least try to do because it is a way for you to become self-employed, first of all, and really showcase the work that you can do and the value that you can bring as an individual. So I think that that's an excellent path for a lot of people, and I'm excited to hear about how it goes for you. If you have any additional tips, anything that you think other people should know as well, please leave those in the comment section below, and we'll go ahead and read those. Everyone else will be able to see the great tips that you have for them. And if you like this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel, and we will see you very soon in the next video.